Amen.
Amen.
So I thought what we'd do today, I want to just give you a little overview of the conference. I might tag team Steve and Hank on that a little bit, talk a little bit about registration, and then talk a little bit about recruiting. So I don't know if we'll use up a full hour, but that's what I have set aside for this, and I'm given the fine group of people on the call, I'm inclined to try to use it. So our I'm going to actually tag team Hank. Hank, tell us about our speaker this year and the topic. And my follow-up question is going to be, if you were talking to a faculty about why they should come hear it, what would you tell them? So,
putting me on the spot, DP.
Yeah.
I'm going to lean on Steve for this too, because he and I had the same conversation with Asan. And how many of you have received your cards for the conference?
Yes.
Has everyone received theirs? Tony, did you get any? Okay. Brian, I don't remember.
Yeah, no, I haven't sent out Tony's yet, but I
Okay.
can send it to Kevin and Karen.
I was going to say, if you could send me a couple, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So Asan Sameh actually attended the conference last year. So, and he's also attended the Midwest conference. Kevin, you would have met him a couple of years ago when I was up there, because they were there too.
Yeah.
But Asan is a nuclear physicist at Duke, doing medical research. He's got 6 different appointments at Duke. But he is a convert to Christian faith. He is from Iran, and he came to the United States for a lot of his, actually all of his graduate studies. He met his wife through the grad ministry at the University of Michigan. And so they actually have really fond memories through the grad ministry at Cedar Campus. And they live in Chapel Hill. He works at Duke. They host some of our grad student gatherings. So they get InterVarsity on a number of different levels. But he is a very thoughtful person. And Steve and I have had a couple of different conversations with him about the topic of what do we call it? Reality, truth, and beauty. And so, Steve, I'm trying to remember structurally how we are doing the 3 lectures, how we are connecting that with maybe some of our own, grad ministry, faculty ministry vision. Do you recall how we?
No, and I think I didn't come prepared for that. We have somewhere in my email, and I can dig that out. We have a description from him of what he was working on. But
I can read this thing, and then maybe we can go from that. So, as part of the image of God in us is the capacity to create, but seen through a glass darkly seems to be a universal description of all human quest towards reality, beauty, and spiritual truth. Our limited vision creates in these quests not only the drive and imagination to see better, but also the mechanisms to safeguard their authenticity and enhance their reach. He'll be speaking broadly, really from those kinds of topics and ideas.
In addition to his science background, Asan is also a concert flautist. He's quite a talented guy, and part of his conversion story is around trying to play a Bach piece that his instructor told him you couldn't play unless you understood the cross. And that's what really drew him to an exploration of Christian faith. So one of the things he's been working on is kind of a theory of everything. How does wisdom, how does truth, beauty, and goodness fit together? And I would say at a deep level, he's choosing the word authenticity because he feels like we are most our authentic selves when we are in pursuit of understanding God in our world out of reverence for him. And so he sees this. We use the word integrity a lot in GFM. He likes the word authenticity, so he'll come at it from a little bit different angle. And we'll probably spend one talk on each of those 3 things. So it's going to be 2 years ago. We had oh shoot, who was our first speaker?
John and
John
Nazu.
and Azu.
John Anazu, who worked on this confident pluralism idea, which was more about the being authentic within the context of the university and how to get along. Last year was Francis Sue, who talked a lot about what does it mean to live into the gospel in our own self-understanding as scholars. And then, so this will be the first time we've dealt with a larger kind of deep theological, philosophical set of questions. How do we understand our mission and calling in light of the gospel? And it's going to be general enough, I think, where it'll be pretty accessible across science and humanities people, because ASAN kind of does that. Although in general, I tell people, we're going to have 3 interesting talks plus some seminars, but that's not usually how I appeal to people to come. I don't usually say, come hear this person, because most of their time isn't hearing a speaker. It's interacting with other faculty, it's building relationships, it's hearing other people's stories of how they live out the gospel, live out their calling in the midst of the university. There's usually some really excellent seminars, and I think that will be the case again this time. And then there's a lot of just rest and reflection time, a lot of time to be in nature. So one of the things as we're recruiting is not try to recruit necessarily on the topic, although that's a piece of it, but on the broader experience of the conference, which is meant to be restorative. So.
And Steve, would you say that the topic somewhat birthed out of his own journey, where he was in the pursuit of beauty musically, and found the truth of the gospel in that, which, yeah, I guess that, and then I've got a follow-up, I guess, comment on that, but.
Yeah, I'd say that's part of, and again, the kind of, if you really want to understand the authenticity of that piece, you have to understand, the kind of the meaning of everything. How does music, beauty, what gives it its meaning? How do we experience it? Why is it true? So I think it'll be probably a bit more of an intellectual challenge for some. And I'm going to meet with this ASAN at least once or twice more to kind of say, let's practice this a little bit in terms of make sure there's language that's accessible to folks. He's a great guy. He's very, very busy, but he really wants to be valuable. So.
And he has been a Veritas speaker as well. 2 other, one is because he's a Muslim convert, in terms of putting that story out on the internet, he's asked us to limit that. So we're not promoting that in the web blog and stuff like that, just because there's liabilities for him with that.
He still has family back there.
Verbally shared
family.
with people, I think. And then secondly, and this I haven't really unpacked, but I would think there's an evangelism piece in this that I think is really interesting in terms of engaging. We don't think of beauty, and we think of truth a lot in the Western world, but we don't think of beauty as much in terms of what might draw people to faith. And I think this could be really fascinating to have conversation around that, particularly when truth is such a elusive thing in terms of, or it's so relativized now, it's hard to make as much traction in that as we might have. So anyway, any other questions around topic or the conference itself at this point?
Yeah, I have a question. Is there a sample itinerary of how the activities are going to flow?
Yes, I can provide you with a draft. It'll be draft at this point.
Great.
We'll probably, we're close to having, we could probably actually get it up on the web now and just update it. There's things that'll be a session that we won't say who's speaking, but. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Let me put that on my to-do list, but I'll try to get that out.
Hey, DP, For the
Yeah.
purpose of our conversation, could you put up a link to the to our planning document, which has that?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Brian, can you do that? Brian does all the hard work in my
I
job.
just posted the link to last year's conference schedule. I'm sure it will be fairly similar. But
Okay,
we
great.
will
Pretty
work
exact.
on that.
Exactly. So probably
It's not going to stray from that really.
no.
Okay, great.
Our conference, if you compare them to the other faculty conferences, it's on the shorter end time wise. So some of the conferences you may say, well, they do all these other things, and well, they probably have a longer conference than we do.
Sure, okay.
So our challenge is always, if we want to add something else that seems really good and would be, excellent addition, is try not to crowd out the free time.
Yeah, I actually like that it's restorative, so that's a good selling point for getting people to go. The other question I have is if I go to the website, I'm here on the website, there's no link to register. How would a faculty register if I send them to this website?
Yeah, we are on the verge of sending out our registration is open email, and so we will put the link also on the website that registration is open.
Okay.
Click here.
It will be there soon.
So yeah.
Okay.
Soon as in 24 hours, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Uh-huh.
I have a question about the topic and the speaker. It sounds like it's going to be a combination of philosophy, science, and music, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering if those people, faculty in other kinds of disciplines, if it's going to be broad enough. I mean, how can he make it broad enough to sort of and practical enough to make it relevant to? I mean, that's just a question that, not knowing him, I'm just sort of responding to what I'm hearing.
Well, Tony, the way I've thought about it, the first one topic was pluralism,
Mm-hmm.
which in some ways it's not the people's academic study, but it's relevant to their daily life.
Right.
Last year we had a mathematician, which we'd often doubt they have anything to say to the rest of us, but they're good with our taxes. But he talked about evangelism. So I think your insight's good in that this is more. Since it's more academic in feel, it may feel like it could marginalize some people. I've been thinking, wow, we've got science and humanities in the discussion.
Yeah.
Cover everybody.
Right.
Practice.
As you said, I mean, the previous two speakers, I mean, even though they came from a particular discipline, it was broad enough to impact the faculty, no matter what discipline you came from. That was my.
So I think there'll be a part of this. I'm looking at his original proposal for how to describe his content, because we did edit for shortness and a few other, and clarity for a few other things. Part of what he's wanting to talk about is kind of the human quest for understanding, which is something all faculty, I feel like, embody, is a deep curiosity and a desire to understand kind of who we are, how things work, why they work the way they do, and why they are. And so so I think he's going to have those kind of broad philosophical questions, that those questions themselves I feel like have broad appeal. How you answer them, he's not a philosopher, he's a medical physicist. So but he is some pretty good philosophical training. But he also talks the language of music and of science. I feel like the broad question of the quest for knowledge and understanding, and the challenge of finding our authentic selves in Christ will have broad appeal. Some of the particularities that kind of the data he works off of for this
that's fine. I was only concerned with,
but I think that'll be.
It has a broad appeal. That's my only concern.
Yep, I hear you, and that'll be one of the things he and I work on. Is just making sure that people, one, can understand them, and that it's not just idiosyncratic, in that sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Good questions. So let me spread out this to anyone who's been before. As you think about inviting people, what are some things you would highlight based on your experience that you'd want faculty to know about beyond what we've talked about in terms of the speaker and topic? How would you phrase it? And I'm thinking of this for people who haven't been before. What's worked? What do you think has brought people in the past? Okay, I'll go first.
I'm trying to be a listener because I talked about it.
Yeah, I know this is true for the Midwest Conference, and I know there's this is true for ours. Faculty with kids, and this is only useful when they have kids, is the kids want to come back. Like the kids have a really good time. It's not like they're just babysat. So our problem is one of the faculty in our region has been going to the Midwest one, and his kids want to keep going back there. So. And the other thing we try to balance, just FYI, is we're not trying to make it feel like it's a family camp. So for single faculty or faculty without kids, we're wanting them to feel like it's for them, which it is. But we also want to let faculty know you can bring their families and they'll have a good experience. So there's a language there that even as we try to make our emails sound balanced and nuanced in that regard, we still don't always hit it. So.
I say it's a great faculty conference, and if you're married, you can bring your spouse and or children too, and there's something there for them as well. So I want the family part to be as there's something there too, rather than it's a family camp and we're trying to make it hospitable for you single folks as well. So the add-on is the family part rather than the single part. I think it's important. We had to edit some of the testimonial from the first year. Said, I really enjoyed InterVarsity's faculty family camp. And we had to strike that from the website because they're like, no, we don't want to say that. So we have actually had a good number of single faculty there.
Yeah.
And I think a good selling point is the fact that it is a place where you can bring together all of you in one place. Very often as a faculty person, you have that professional life. You don't bring your Christian stuff to you. Or you go to church, you bring your Christian stuff, but you don't bring your professional life. But we can have an integrated kind of a context where both your family, your profession, your personal life, everything is sort of something that you can bring together.
And you can learn from other faculty. And I think part of it is bringing together a learning community. Like, how do you do this? How do you hold this together in your own life and as a scholar and teacher?
One of the things that I've noticed from being involved in all of the faculty conferences around the country is that there are some faculty who come who are not part of a faculty fellowship back on their campus, and their testimony is that their week at faculty conference gets them through the coming year. And so particularly for those folks, it's a critical week to connect with others who, like Tony said, are able to come as their whole selves and engage with other faculty men and women who love God and want to follow him on their campus, and just have no local community who understands that. So it's a pretty important week for them as they think through their whole calendar year, right? That's a pretty critical week for them to feel like, I won't survive if I don't get to faculty conference and have that sort of engagement.
Selling point to me was the pace. It felt like a retreat. It was restorative, but there was just enough intellectual stimulation to make it rich.
Yeah. Yes.
And when I think of pace, I think of the fact that we're up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And and there's porches and rocking chairs, and you're looking out into the woods, and there's hiking. There's I wouldn't count on the bikes there, but there are mountain bikes. You bring your mountain bike or your road bike. There are no official intervarsity cycling events, though some of us might bring our bikes.
The waterfalls.
Yeah.
It's a waterfall rich area.
One of the moments I really loved last year, I mean, we have small group Bible studies, so we do dig into scripture as part of our time, a couple times together. In my small group, there was a young woman faculty who had just been denied tenure in a really difficult, very small campus, difficult political situation. And there was a woman who was the senior vice provost for faculty promotion and tenure. And that senior provost just gave wise and gentle and loving counsel to this young person who'd been hurt by the very process she oversaw on a different campus. And I don't know, I think part of it, when I think about recruiting, I want to recruit really young faculty members who are new, and I want to recruit senior faculty who we might say, come because it will be restorative for you, but come because you bring something to the table that'll be a gift for some of these younger faculty. So I do think there's an appeal to older faculty to think not just what am I going to get out of it, what am I bringing to it as well. And that was just a lovely moment. So. Sorry, my dog.
Well, in terms of who to invite, some of this is rehearsal for some of you, but obviously think of the faculty on your campus. And there's information and then there's invitation. And I think in recruiting, it's important to make the distinction. Sending an email out with the information, that's just information. Dropping by their office with an awesome card, talking to them about why you think they'd be blessed by it. That's invitation. And so I would, if you're interacting with 20 faculty, you may not get to have a private invitation conversation with each of them. But I would encourage you to pray through who are the invitation list and then what's the information list. So that's thinking of the campus, but more broadly, a lot of us, particularly if you've worked with grad students, have faculty all spread around the Southeast that might be in driving distance. So I keep thinking of a guy I've invited all 3 years, or 2 years so far, and I've already mentioned it to him this year, who teaches at Furman in philosophy. I'm going to work on him again. I think he'd love this topic. And so think through people who, so when you think of our region, it does include Western Nebraska. I wouldn't devote as much energy to people out there. That's assuming there's a college in Western Nebraska. But if they're within, 6 hours, a half day's drive of Brevard, which there's a lot of people within that range. I try to get them on your list. I have a little ongoing list that I go down and send emails to, both when we did Save the Date, and I'll do it again when the registration's open. So that's how I think about it. I don't know if anyone else who's done this before wants to add to that or make any comments.
Hank,
I think that's good, Don Paul. I was just thinking, the faculty on our campuses, and maybe some of the campuses nearby that we have connections with. And then the next one would be the alumni that we know that, as you said, and I'm just thinking of, we've had folks from sort of those categories come the last couple of years. So it's a good way to approach it. There may be some other ways we're not thinking that we need to think about, but those are at least two ways.
The other thing I would say, depending on the level of your relationship with undergrad staff, but just to say, hey, are there any faculty that to the undergrad staff who are around you that you think would really benefit from this? And would you be willing to, to either invite them or introduce me to them so I can invite them? I think the undergrad staff are another population that could really be part of our invitational community.
I agree with that. I agree with that very strongly because I think that, and I've been trying to sell this in my region, that this could be a gift for the faculty advisors at chapters all across the region.
The other, Fred's been recruiting a friend, somebody he's known for a number of years, a guy named Willie Fleming, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at App State University. And so Willie's really had no exposure much to InterVarsity, but a lot to Fred Williams. So he couldn't come last year, and he's been interested some this year. And I spent probably an hour and a half with him on the phone on Monday, and he's full bore coming.
Great.
He's coming, and he's willing to kind of help a little bit with worship leadership. He started the gospel choir there at App State when he was a student. But I neglected to say to him, well, who else do you know that you think would really benefit from this? And so, he knows people too. I didn't ask him to think about who he might bring with him. He may feel like he wants to go first before he brings somebody. So that's the other group, asking undergrad staff and then asking the faculty we know who might come to think about who else they might extend an invitation to.
Hey, Steve, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you have a mix of university administrators too, as well? It's mostly just professors.
So far, it's been professors.
Okay.
The woman last year who was a senior vice provost, one of the reasons she came is that was her last year in that post, returning to teaching, and she really wanted to gather with some other faculty to kind of reinvigorate that part of her life and calling. And so it's a woman named Catherine Bassard who teaches up at BC. And so she came because she was transitioning out of staff work back into a faculty role. And she just said it was transformational for her. But I don't think it was really Francis Sue's talks. I think it was her conversations along the side and some of the Sue talks were great. But some of the conversations, we've tried to do a workshop on pedagogy every time, something around not just what we think and write about, but how we interact with students. And so, and that's part of the faculty task. And
so you think administrators and like vice presidents and so on would not feel out of place, but might enjoy it too?
I think they'd enjoy it because it's so it's not content driven.
Yeah.
It's not 4 days of content. It's some content and a lot of conversation. That's my sense. I don't know what y'all think.
Kevin, I would say academic administrators would feel quite at home.
Yeah.
Dean of students who only has a master's may or may not feel at home. They'd be more than welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if that helps any.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
We, have also had medical doctors in our universities. Well, last year we had just one, I think, come. Is that right?
One medical doc?
Yeah, from Vanderbilt.
Oh, yeah.
He was an MD, PhD.
Okay. Don't forget them, though. I think that's, another layer of our faculty ministry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
And one other note on just to highlight what Steve said. I think one of the things that I feel like I'm on the cusp of kind of hitting big on is almost make it it could be a reunion for former grad students who are faculty around that part of the country to get together and see each other. Now they have kids and whatnot. So that thing of faculty inviting other faculty, not just both on their campus, but also maybe people they knew from grad school who they'd love to see and interact with. So.
And that was actually the case with Julie from Western Carolina, Kim from down here, UNC, and Lisa, who was coming down from Kentucky. They all were in the grad chapter together when they were PhD students. And I think, Steve, we've had some Duke faculty in the past, maybe the first year that was more the case, but
So we've had a current postdoc at Duke, a alumni who teaches at Anderson College in South Carolina, and yeah, it's been good on that end.
The one I'm moving off the recruiting topic just for a minute here. I'm working a little bit on developing a guest track. If you have, don't invite anybody, but if you have a major donor that you think would be interested in this, who would also, if we do it this year, it'll be the guinea pig guest track, and I would tell all guests who come in the guest track that. No disrespect to guinea pigs. But yeah, that's something that we're wanting to develop and grow for future years. So talk to me before you invite somebody. I'll probably be a month away from making a decision whether we have enough bandwidth, and I don't want to do a guest track with one person in it. You know what I mean? So I actually have somebody I think who would be okay with that, but it'd be more interesting to have a guest track, 3 or 4 family units or people. So, anything else on recruiting before I go? If Brian wants to say anything else from his end.
I want to say a little bit. We ought to talk about there's scholarship money.
Yes.
Available. So especially for younger faculty or postdocs, that's problematic. One of the options on the registration page is to make a donation. So if we know some senior faculty that we're recruiting, especially if it's someone that's like, I'd love to come, but I'm not able to. One of the things we can do is say, would you be interested in making a donation to our scholarship track? Our scholarships, we can bring in some early career faculty. And I think people would be often willing to do that, or to come and pay for someone else as they do so. So Fred Brooks came the first year. He's started the computer science department at Carolina, and I imagine I don't know if he made a contribution last year to our scholarship track or not, but so think about that, because it has made a difference for. We've usually had 5 or 6 people at least scholarships to the conference, which is about 20%. So
yeah. So one thing on how the money and pricing works for all of us as staff too. The program fee, I'm going to mess this up. Is it $100 per adult?
No, 160 or something like that, isn't it?
No. I think it's more like 110 for early bird. And
110 for early bird,
and then 160 after.
And then 160 after. So that's all the other. That goes to adults, and then if you have kids, it's $50 per kid up to 2. And then we cover the cost for any kids after that. So we didn't want to penalize large families. Yeah. So anyway, all I had to say, the program fee is not large.
Yeah.
Their main cost is getting there and their on-site costs that the camp bills them.
So on the website it says 170. It doesn't have the early bird.
Are you getting that, Brian?
Yes, I will.
That's a Ridgehaven issue, isn't it?
No, I mean we don't have it listed right now, but I'll add it on there.
Okay.
The early bird part.
Thanks for catching that, Christina.
Yeah, sure.
Ridgehaven does do it correct. I registered myself earlier this week, and Ridgehaven does have it in their system.
Okay.
Correctly.
Off, yeah.
So we're
doing 170.
We're advertising a high price, but then giving them a low price. I think you make money doing it the other way.
So what I think best, Brian, would be to have adult 170 and then in parentheses 110 early bird price until a certain day, and that way they see the cost and they see they're getting such a great deal.
Yeah, we did find there wasn't a lot of registration happening until right at the early bird deadline, and then there was quite a bit after the early bird deadline.
Yeah.
So the extra $50 doesn't motivate some people like it might some of us. Brian, anything else on from your end?
Again, I hope to send out this email saying that registration is open, today or tomorrow. I think Myra will be sending it out to the list that we've accumulated from all the faculty conferences the past few years, as well as all the staff in the in GFM South Central. If you've never been before, if you've not done this registration, it is a little bit of a bear. So we are supplying some additional instructions, but I'm also everywhere. I'm writing plenty of times to either contact me or Ridgehaven for help. I know that it's a little tricky, but we will do our best to get people there. Brian's
being nice. It's really more than just a little tricky. It's difficult to register. So if I have somebody say yes, I would next say, well, I just want you to know registration technically can be challenging, but not because of you, because of the system. So help with that, pay attention to how to do that. There's also a PDF that'll walk them through it step by step that encourages them to download. That's the main thing I would say. Encourage them tell them, I don't need any help. I'm just registering. Tell them to read the PDF. Because it really does makes a difference. So. Great. The good thing is that one of the reasons it's complex is that they have a lot of different kind of housing options.
Right.
Housing option it has a different cost to it. It also lets people. It really does let you fine tune your experience, and that's a really nice piece to it.
So the housing housing options show up once we register and are in. Okay, great.
And am I right? You can register but not pick your housing, and then have to go back and get your housing later. You don't have to do it all at once.
I mean, you can start your registration.
Okay.
And at any point, I think it saves it along the way. It does give an option, like just at the bottom that says save for later. That's what I did. So I started it a few weeks ago, and I left it because I wasn't sure about our housing. And then I came back this week to do the housing. So it is nice in that it saves it. You don't have to start all over, but you just have to be prepared for lots of different options, choices, clicking here and there. Eventually, we may have a platform within InterVarsity to manage this, but it's kind of difficult. The other thing is, if somebody is applying for a scholarship, that they need to hold off making their payments. So, and Brian, you may not know this from talking to Rachel. Rachel just kind of managed those on a case-by-case basis in conversation with the folks at Ridgehaven. So if they had a scholarship paying for their housing, then she would tell them, that can you credit this to their account and take it out of our registration.
Or bill us in the final.
Bill us in the final tally. So that all got done kind of in an informal process. And the way the money works is they collect all the money and then cut us a check for the program fees at the end and other things. Whatever is left.
And that's nice.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Okay.
And they provide all the children's programming with their own staff, and so we don't have to vet and hire and.
Also very nice.
It's also every time I hear about the other conferences, I'm like, thank you, Lord. It makes a difference. All right. Well, I'm going to ask for a volunteer or two volunteers to pray for the conference here, and then I'll let you all go. Unless there's anything else. Any last call for any other questions or comments? How many people on this call are planning on coming?
Okay.
I'll be there, Christina.
Yeah.
Kevin, I don't know for you guys. It really depends on moving. I mean,
I'm open to coming, but
we want you there if you can be there.
Thanks, Hank.
Love to have you.